Oh boy, here we go. It's time for another thing already. Oh boy. Yay. Hello there, everybody. This is CwapTheNintendin here, and welcome to another edition of Platinum Impressions, in which I talk about games and stuff, more stuff. You know how the deal is at this point. So, today we are going to be talking about the sequel to one of the games I recently talked about, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2. Hooray. So, is always the first word that I use. Before even touching this game, I only heard about this game from my brother, and how he really likes Force Unleashed 2. I only saw him playing through a couple of boss fights, and I didn't think much of it, except it was Star Wars, and it seemed cool that, you wielded all these Force powers and junk. And keep in mind, this was years ago, so I didn't even play Force Unleashed 1 back then. All I know is that, Force Unleashed 2 existed, and that was that. And years later, when I next hear of Force Unleashed 2, I hear from most of my friends that either they really like it or really hate it. But, I was willing to give it a shot, since, the first one, I really loved the first one. It was such a great game. And now it's the time for the journey to getting this game. As you probably will know, I went to Summer Northeast Comic Con earlier this year, and I actually found the PS3 version of this game for about $15. So that was thinking, you know what, that was a steal. That was a freaking steal. So I go back, and I put the game in the good old system, and it crashes on the title screen. All because the game has to scan for downloadable content. So I boot it up again, and I get as far as the opening crawl, and that's where the game fucks up tremendously. Like, the game would just stutter like nothing else. I couldn't even get past the opening crawl, even after I was, waiting and waiting and waiting for, stuff to happen. I just couldn't do it. Even when I rebooted my PS3's OS, I still couldn't play the game. And it's like I said before, the PS3 version is unplayable. If you remember my little joke at the end of my Force Unleashed 1 impressions video, I said that the Force Unleashed 1 is more functional than the Force Unleashed 2. I was talking about the PS3 versions. How could they make the first game work so well on the PS3 and not this one? It's so stupid. And Sony approved of this being on the PS3. It's like, what the hell? So it was decided that me and my brother would eventually get the 360 version. And, it was about, a month later. But we get it at GameStop. And by it, I mean Force Unleashed 1. Because apparently the people working behind the counter didn't even look at the disc. So we got home only to discover that we got the first game. So my brother goes back to GameStop and we get the right game for once, and it takes over a good hour because it was hot, it was traffic and whatnot, and we finally get the game. And after my brother sat through the first level and then the endless second level, I played through the game all in one sitting, and I honestly don't know what to think. Well, I'll go into more thoughts of it as we go along here. But anyway, now it's time for a good old-fashioned story time. So, it's been 6 months since the ending of Force Unleashed 1. Obviously, the light side ending is canon, so you would assume that you would know what happens at the end of Force Unleashed 1. So this time around, Darth Vader sets his sights on the planet Kamino, where all the cloning was done during the Clone Wars. And, as it turns out, he's been making Star Killer clones there. How did this happen? Reasons. Anyway, as the clone starts his training, or as I call him, Clone Killer, he starts to gain some of his memories of events from 6 months ago. Like, Vader somehow, and I mean somehow, implanted all the Star Killer clones with memories of his old self, which, I don't know, makes sense to me. About his love Juno, his daddy Vader, and among other things. I'm surprised you remember Proxy at all, because Proxy's amazing. So soon afterwards, he escapes Kamino. He rescues his old friend General Coda from a planet who who he has been trapped on. And he sets out to find out his identity while battling Vader's Imperial forces, obviously. Okay, so I'm kind of spoiling the game rotten by saying this, but... So his end goal is finding Juno, right? Well, what for? And finding out finding out his place in the universe as, you know, the clone of Starkiller, right? So, what is this all for? Is she gonna tell him why she's starting to remember his whole life? You know, memories implanted into him? Will she trigger some form of memories, realizing that, you know, who cares if he's like the clone killer? He's still the ancestor of Starkiller, right? Well, the answer is none of the above, because he's just there to rescue his lady friend and have some of that Juno ass. Also remember when Starkiller used to be an interesting character and how he's all calm and stuff? Well, apparently Clone Killer this time around is, well, since he's more in an intense situation, he suddenly decides to become unintentionally and hilariously edgy. Like, he's all mad and stuff. Like, in the first level, he's like, leave me alone or stay away! And, you know, during the whole, like, boss fight on the second level, so, like, Coda and Clone Killer are talking, and they're like, oh, the beast is loose! You must subjugate him! And then Starkiller's like, ha ha ha! It's the most unintentionally hilarious line in the game. It's so weird. It's too weird. Plus, Coda is now more like your Navi at this game, telling you what to do. At all times. And by all times, I mean boss times. And by boss times, I mean extremely long boss times. Proxy is only in like one level and he's still really cool. Vader's still really awesome as always. And Juno this time around, she's basically Princess Peach. You know, the object of the hero's rescue and all that. For what I've been giving it here, I just wish the Clone Killer, as I call him, would have come to terms with who he was and resolved to do something. But no, he doesn't. The light side ending just sort of ends with, you know, him saving Juno and Vader being taken into custody by, you know, the Rebel Alliance. Well, we know he'll eventually break out and go into Episode 4 mode. And yeah, just the way the story's played out, it's probably like the worst part of the game due to unanswered questions, shoehorned characters, and whatever else I could be missing from the Endor level DLC. But I don't really think it's that important, it's only $1. You can get into some insight on how the Dark Side's ending came to be via cutscenes unlocked by the challenges, and it's called Distant Thunder, which, you know, yeah, it doesn't really matter because it contains stuff from the Dark Side ending, which doesn't even make sense anyway. But about the challenges, I'll go into later. So, yeah, story is like the worst part of the game by far. And, you know, could have been interesting, but nope. It just wasn't. But in terms of the game itself, it's essentially the first game with either small or big alterations. Well, mainly it's some big alterations. I'm happy to say that the Force is still really fun to use. It's still just as fun as it is in the first game, and you keep your abilities that you used in the first game as well. Well, with the exception of one new ability, Mind Trick, which you can take control of enemies and make them die from falling into oblivion, or laser gates, or to make them attack into allies. It's actually a pretty useful ability to get some enemies in a group off your back. But it's really the only new ability that you get, and that Clone Killer just remembers, for some reason. Yeah, Clone Killer gets his abilities from memories and stuff. It makes sense for the other abilities, like Force Repulse, Saber Throw, and, you know, Force Scripts and all that. But for Mind Trick, he didn't even use that in the first game, so it's like, why? How is he able to do that? I don't know. But what I do know is, the lightsaber combat also has been tweaked, so it's set more faster and it's more fluid than the first game. Because this time around, you have 2 lightsabers that you can custom and tinker around with and kill people with. I say with a lot. And it's like I said, with the custom lightsabers and all that, saber crystals are also back, with you getting the crystals from every level. and the challenges, which I don't like. Yeah, the crystals in the levels you can only get for customizing both the main and secondary sabers. In order to custom both with one crystal, you have to complete the challenges that you unlock throughout the story. And yep, they're like near impossible unless you look them up. Even my brother has gripes with the challenges because when it comes to getting the highest rank to ensure you getting the costumes, Distant Thunder cutscenes, which is the dark side ending, and the saber and both saber crystal customs for customizing both sabers, it can range from really, really hard to nearly impossible. Blame the combat trial, where the game decides whether you get a combo right or not. And most of the times when I try the combo and it just doesn't register. And you make one slip up, and bye-bye Jedi Grandmaster rank, which is the highest that you can get. Screw that trial so much. Also blame the Deadly Path trial for making it near impossible to achieve 18 seconds even with your best stash and jump combos. And this is a reminder, this is how you unlock things that aren't important, and I don't like that at all. It's like, the Force Unleashed 1 had that perfectly with just, finding every holocron in the level with the, the one lightsaber. Why couldn't it work the same way in the first game? And the costumes as well, obviously. And yeah, I don't really think it's even worth it, those challenges, because again, they're near impossible unless you look them up on YouTube, and that's what I did in order to complete the Deadly Path trials and the Scout Trooper trial, in which, you have to constantly dash everywhere to avoid, getting sniped by the Scout Troopers and all that. And, the costumes themselves, they're really cool. Like, right here, throughout most of the thing, I'm playing as Boba Fett. I'm freaking playing as Boba Fett. And you can also play as, the Rebel Troopers, General Coda, Training Droids, Experimental Jedi Armor. These are some really, really cool costumes. And, the fact that you unlock, the really cool ones from the challenges, is it really worth all that trial and error and multiple tries just to get right? Well, if you're the type of person who really likes those hard challenges, go ahead and do them. I'm not stopping you. I'd just rather unlock things from the story for these types of games, thank you. Yeah. So, the method of unlocking things, I don't really get at all, and I don't really like. Just, you get half of the unlockables from the story and just the other half of the unlockables from challenges, which is dumb. Stupid. But otherwise, the game is essentially, the same, with a few alterations here and there, including those, free-falling sections. Like, there are certain sections of the game where, you just free-fall, like at the beginning of the game on Kamino, when you escape Vader. You just free-fall from everything, and the control is really sweet. Just the fact that you can push all these objects out of your way, it's just really great. It's so exhilarating, too. Like I said in Force Unleashed 1, the levels themselves might be really long, but I didn't care because the overall control and combat was really fun. But in Force Unleashed 2, the levels themselves have one big problem. Length. So, imagine in this game, where a full playthrough is planned in you, right? So, you play through the entire game, right? And the entire game is set up like an endurance test. Meaning there are a lot of checkpoints, yeah, in every level, but the game doesn't tell you when the levels end. Like, there's no results screen like in the first game at all to indicate, oh hey, you completed the level, here's the amount of holocrons you got, or here's your list of objectives that you beat. I did a full playthrough of this game, in one go, expecting the game to be all level complete, but that just didn't happen. To explain further, the second planet that you visited, I can't even pronounce it, Cato Nemordia or something like that, where you have to go all the way to the end to rescue General Coda, right? It's broken up into 3 sections, the Easter Arc, the Western Arc, and the Arena. Throughout that entire planet, there is no such results screen or section complete at all. And the game didn't offer to save the game to give you a break if you're tired of playing. And the only indicator that, you moved on to the next section of the planet or level is through a CGI cutscene. Like, the last part of the Eastern Arc is on a tram that you have to defend, right? And you defeat this big ship that's been chasing you throughout the Eastern Arc, right? So you temporarily keep that thing at bay, expecting a result screen or a level complete thing to pop up, right? Well, no, the game just goes immediately into a loading screen, and it just goes into the cutscene indicating the start of the next level. So every major level in the game is going to make you age. And some of these levels can get kind of repetitive after a while. And I blame the Salvation level for this, because that level is just get to the end point of the ship, defeat a boss, and then go backwards throughout the entire ship, just to bring it down to Camino. What good is improved combat and control if the levels are just going to take you nearly 40 minutes on average with no breaks, and they can get redundant after a while? That's like my biggest problem with it, is just, you know, levels can get really, really long, and because of the fact that there's no result screen or loading screen, they're just going to take forever. It certainly did. And I noticed that problem when my brother was playing, you know, the Cato Nemordia level. And it didn't really help that the boss at the end of Cato, the big Garog boss fight, you know, where you have to restrain it and then bring it down, then restrain it again, and then you have to fight it from the rafters, and then you have to rescue Coda by doing a free fall. It's just, those boss fights can take forever. And yeah, speaking of which, the boss fights, yeah, they can get really aging too. Well, not the Terror Walker boss on the Salvation level, because that's the only good boss. And I was like, yeah, that's how a boss fight should be made. Not Darth Vader or Garog, because the Garog is 20 plus minutes long, and it's treated as its own level, but I still count it as a boss fight. And, you know, it's just like I said, you have to restrain it, and then battle it again, restrain it again, then fight it from the rafters, and then fight it from the free fall. That boss fight should have just been the free falling section only. I would have been perfectly fine with that. But instead, like, you have to do all these things in order to beat it. And, you know, just that little reminder on the top right of the screen, it's just, you're not done with the boss fight yet. You only chipped out, like, what, half of its health? Whoops. Yeah. It's just, those boss fights can take forever. And I also blame Vader for this too. And Vader's all like, now how do I make my fight better than the first game? Extend the fight by like 10 minutes, letting only Clone Killer give me chip damage from the quick time events, and then get to the top of the Camino world where Clone Killer goes Super Saiyan and kills my asshole. Yeah, that's something I forgot to mention actually. You have a new like Super Saiyan mode called Force Fury, which is actually really, really fun. Which you can just have unlimited force pushes and force lightnings and everywhere. It's just basically your Super Saiyan mode or Unleashed mode from Sonic Unleashed. But yeah, that Vader fight should have taken out, 5+ minutes of platforming QTEs. In fact, cut out 20 minutes of every level. That'll make the experience much more bearable. Plus, even though Force Unleashed 2 is technically shorter than, Force Unleashed 1, it doesn't really matter in the long run because it's, like I said before, the levels can take a really, really long time due to the fact that how the game's basically set up to be an endurance test and no result screens at all, giving you an opportunity to take a break. Yeah. But, I do have to give Force Unleashed 2 credit for something. Attention to detail. Attention to detail is probably like one of my favorite things in any game, period. And to give credit to Force Unleashed 2, you use lightsabers to combat, right? Well, if you hit enemies in just the right, place, like in the arms or the head, they actually get decapitated or their limbs severed. Which is actually one of my more favorite things to do, actually, just to decapitate stormtroopers and sever their limbs. That's something that didn't really happen in the first game, and that detail I love to death. But with all the things that I said right here, do I like Force Unleashed 2 or do I not like it? Because honestly, I'm kind of torn on Force Unleashed 2. I really want to like it because the fact that they improve things like combat and you could do everything that you could do in the first game. You have all of your abilities, all of everything that you could do in the first game. Plus the customization and the costumes, along with the new ability or two to play with. Those are really good. Plus the attention to detail that I just mentioned. Plus the graphics are better, but the way the game expects you to just chug through every level without breaks or no result screens. And the long as hell boss fights, plus the repetitive level design, can really just sour the game. And the method of unlocking more costumes and saber crystals through near impossible to platinum ranked challenges in the game, I just don't really approve of. If I'm gonna be replaying the game, I'm gonna have my fun with it, but I am not going to forgive the long boss fights or the repetitive levels. I don't really know if I can recommend this game or not. If you're a big fan of the first game, then you'll probably won't like it as much. But if you can look past the problems that I mentioned, then have all the fun that you can with Force Unleashed 2. Just pray to God that you get the Xbox version for your 360 or Xbox One, because the PS3 version is virtually unplayable past the opening crawl. Base Microsoft is the best Microsoft, period. And it's the only way to go. Which is probably why if they ever make a Force Unleashed 3, then they should definitely only make it Xbox exclusive. Because pray to God that it'll barely work on the PC or PS4 or 4 or possibly NX. But yeah, speaking of Force Unleashed 3, now that LucasArts is, basically dead, do I think they should make a Force Unleashed 3? Definitely, yeah. I really like to see the story of Star Killer continue, honestly. And, fill in more of those gaps between episode 3 and 4. But, now that Disney has, Star Wars, they have Star Wars Rebels for that, which I still need to watch, and apparently people say it's amazing. So, they apparently written Force Unleashed out of the canon, I guess. But I'm gonna pretend these things the Force Unleashed games are canon. Well, almost all of Force Unleashed. I just wish Force Unleashed 2's story didn't happen. Yeah. So yeah, I'm holding out hopes for Force Unleashed 3. Pray to God that the story won't be so dumb. So yeah, I'm kind of torn about Force Unleashed 2. But hey, at least I played the game and I don't regret getting it whatsoever. But yeah, that will about do it. The next LP should be revealed tomorrow. And if not, if this Platinum Impressions isn't up by, later today, then it will definitely be up by, Tuesday. In which, I plan to reveal the next Let's Play Tuesday anyway, so it's like, yeah, 2 for the price of 1. Anyway, though, I will see you guys, I don't know, later, for the next installment of Platinum Impressions. That's going up later, I guess. See you guys on the next time.